Today we're going to be looking at a neurovascular chart. Now, some charts, they combine the upper limb and lower limbs, but the chart that we have here today separate the upper limb as opposed to, if I go to the other page, the other side, the lower limb, which is on a separate chart. So looking at this chart, at first glance it seems very busy, but they actually have a wonderful legend that explains to you everything that you should be filling out. So you always begin by affixing a patient label to the chart and documenting the date. So the year goes in this section and the day and month in one little square, and you do need to squeeze it in there. The time goes in this little square. Do not fill the time over here. This allows us to do multiple checks at various times. So when comparing a limb, let's say there's a limb that we are concerned about, such as the left arm, you always compare it to the right arm. So it's important to document both limbs, not just the one that you are concerned about. So in this case, we're going to say, let's say we're concerned about the left arm, we're going to document for both the right and the left. So on the 4th of the 10th at 13:15, the nurse documented that the right arm was pink in color and the left arm was pink in color. So that's normal. The right arm was warm and the left arm was warm. At times, limbs can be cool depending on the situation. So we do need to factor in extenuating circumstances, such as if the patient was just outside in the cold air, or if they were just having a hot shower where their limbs might be extra warm for a few minutes. Moving on, we're assessing movement. So you have A-, which means active movement without pain, when the patient can independently move their hands. Active movement with pain, so when they move their hand, they feel pain. Passive movement is when they are unable to move their hand, and a nurse or the patient must physically grab the hand to move it. P- means without pain, so somebody else moving their hand does not cause pain. Or P+, passive movement with pain, somebody else moving the hand causes pain. Or S, sleeping, the patient is sleeping, so we cannot assess that. If you're actually concerned about a patient, generally we will wake them up to assess this. So here it's been documented active movement without pain right and active movement without pain left, and that's for the radial nerve. So that's flipping the hand up and down from the wrist like you're waving goodbye. Here we've tested the median nerve, so combining the thumb and the pinky together till they touch, and the patient is capable of doing this without pain. And ulnar nerve is spreading those fingers wide, and the patient is capable of doing this on both hands with no pain. Then we move on to sensation, which is also assessing the nerves. So this here is the radial nerve provides sensation for the top of the hand, the median nerve for the inner part of the hand, the palm, and then the ulnar nerve for the pinky and a little bit of that ring finger. I'm sure you guys have hit your funny bone before. That's the ulnar nerve. We're going to test all three of those nerves, and we're going to determine whether the patient has full sensation, no sensation, which this says nil, pins and needles, partial sensation, or does the fingers move to touch, but that's about it for sensation. Usually in an unconscious patient, you'd assess that. So here at 13:15, the patient had full sensation in the right hand, full sensation in the left, full sensation for the median nerve component of the right hand, full sensation on the left, and on the ulnar nerve, so that funny bone nerve, full sensation to the pinky and full sensation to the left. Moving down, we're assessing if there's swelling. N stands for nil, so no swelling on either hand. And here we're going to assess the pulses. So it's important to note that you must palpate the lowest pulse first, so the radial pulse. If you can palpate the radial pulse, that's great, and you're going to identify whether it was strong, weak, or absent. If you can't palpate the radial pulse, the next pulse we're going to palpate is the brachial pulse. It is possible to have a brachial pulse because that's higher up in your arm, but no radial pulse. However, you will never have a situation where you have a radial pulse but no brachial pulse. So in this case, the radial pulse was palpated on the right arm and the left arm, and both pulses were strong. Venous return is your cap refill. In this case, the cap refill was rapid, which means the cap refill blood flow returned to the fingers within 2 seconds of us applying pressure to the fingertips or the nail beds. Brisk is a little bit slower, such as 3 seconds. Slow is slower than 3 seconds, and sluggish is significantly impaired. And then we assess the pain score from 0 to 10 for both the left and right arm. Down here under additional comments, we have a section where we can write in plaster cast. However, generally, if I have additional comments, I will put an asterisk, and then I will add my comments into the progress note. Now, we're going to look at where a situation wasn't normal. So everything was normal and good for the patient's arms at 1:15, but later in the day at 17:20, things started to change. So the right arm was pink, but the left was looking purple. The right hand was warm, but the left was cool. Now, we discussed earlier about how sometimes cool is acceptable, but when we combine it with the other assessments we're doing on this chart, you'll see that it's indicative that there's a concern. The right hand, the radial nerve, was working fine. However, the patient was unable to activate the radial nerve and move the hand. Even though it didn't hurt him, he physically could not do it. He required passive assistance. Same goes with the median nerve. Passive assistance was required for the left, and ulnar nerve passive assistance was required for the left. So already alarm bells are going off in my head going, something's not quite right here. Moving on, the right hand had full sensation. The left hand had pins and needles on the top. The left hand also had pins and needles on the bottom and pins and needles along that ulnar nerve. There was no swelling noted to either hand. The pulse was strong from the radial artery. However, the radial artery on the left was absent. Venous return to the right hand was rapid, but it was sluggish to the left. And down in the pain score, there was no pain on the right or the left. There is enough here that's happening to the left hand that's making me suspect that, at first I would have suspected that a nerve was compromised due to the changes in the nerve sensation and movement. However, because the venous return is sluggish, now I'm beginning to suspect, not only is it sluggish, but the color is purple and the skin temperature is cool. I suspect it's actually neurovascular related, so there could be a blood clot somewhere in the arm, which it requires immediate intervention from a doctor. So that's when we would be calling the doctor. Now I just want to show you the lower limb observation chart. It's set up almost the exact same way. You've got your colors, your warmth. Your movements are a little bit different, okay? And your nerves are a little bit different. The pulses, we've got more pulses in the legs. So dorsalis pedis is the lowest, so that's the first one you're going to assess for. If you have dorsalis pedis, you don't need to assess the other ones because they're definitely going to be present. However, if you can't locate dorsalis pedis, then you slowly move your way up to posterior tibial, which is right around the ankle, popliteal, which is behind the knee, or femoral, which is in the groin. And that is how you complete your neurovascular assessment.